This is democracy, Cambodian style. Orderly queues of voters, long lists of candidates, and the usual photo opportunity for leaders to cast their ballots. The local elections in June were practically textbook. A sign welcomed by many Cambodians ahead of 2018's general election. But fast forward 3 months, and critics say the political openness on display is no more. In September, Cambodia's opposition leader, Kem Sokha of the Cambodian National Rescue Party, was charged with treason. The Prime Minister, Hun Sen, has accused Kem Sokha of conspiring with the United States to topple the government, his government. He has pointed to this video recording from 2013 in which Kem talks about receiving advice from Americans on changing government through democratic means. Kem Sokha was denied bail and not allowed to appear at a hearing this week because a judge said his presence would have been a security risk.
The defense team believes that holding the hearing without the presence of Kem Sokha is a huge abuse of his rights, and we think this trial cannot guarantee justice.
Kem Sokha only became leader of the opposition this year after his predecessor Sam Rainsy resigned, over fears the opposition would be banned if he stayed on in the role. Hun Sen is one of the world's longest-serving leaders. He's been Prime Minister for 32 years, helping to rebuild Cambodia after years of conflict and genocide. It's become one of Southeast Asia's booming economies, but alongside that growth have been allegations of land grabs, corruption and human rights violations. In recent years, Hun Sen has presided over a change to Cambodia's foreign allegiances and found an important source of funds for the nation, deepening ties with China and its president, Xi Jinping. But Hun Sen is now facing the biggest test of public support in more than 3 decades. The opposition had been gaining ground, particularly among young Cambodians. And activists say that's one of the reasons the government has cracked down on the opposition, civil organisations and independent media. The Cambodia Daily shut down its presses after being handed what it said was an arbitrary multi-million-dollar tax bill. The 2018 election is going ahead, but will Cambodians be given the chance to exercise their democratic choice? Natalie Pohonen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined from Washington, D.C. by Monavithya Kem. She's the daughter of jailed opposition leader Kem Sokha and a spokeswoman for the Cambodia National Rescue Party. And in Bangkok, Phil Robertson. He's the Deputy Director of the Asia Division at Human Rights Watch. Thanks both of you for joining us. Monavithya Kem, if I can begin with you, why do you think they jailed your father, Kem Sokha?
Specifically because there's an election coming up in less than 10 months, and the Hun Sen government is creating an environment where the opposition party cannot function like an opposition party, where civil society cannot function like civil society, and where they shut down media. So all the basic components that you need for a free, fair election are being taken apart.
They claim that your father has been conspiring with the US to instigate a color revolution in Cambodia. They've used the word treason. Is there any possibility that there might have been some sort of coordination with people in the United States, which they then used and maybe exaggerated in order to come up with this word treason?
I think it's beyond exaggeration. It's completely baseless. Whatever so-called evidence that they have, it's purely just a public video, a public speech that we ourselves have been posted online for several years ago, and suddenly a month ago they decided to use that as evidence. And I think everyone, including inside Cambodia and outside of Cambodia, can see clearly that there's absolutely no case, and this is purely politically motivated in order for Hun Sen government to jail his only opponent inside the country right now ahead of election.
Phil Robertson, ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights say Cambodia has descended into, quote, outright dictatorship. Are they right?
Well, I think that it is moving there very fast that way. As your other guest mentioned, civil society as a force, the opposition political party, and independent information media have been essentially squashed by this government over the past 2 to 3 months. This is an all-out assault using an excuse of a color revolution that doesn't exist in order to attack everybody who is prepared to contest the CPP's control or what Hun Sen says. It is a situation that is a rapid spiral downwards into dictatorship, certainly. And I think that this is the time now when the international community has to step up. The ambassadors in Phnom have to speak up, the UN agencies, and the UN. I mean, we actually are seeing a situation where a democracy that was promised by a Paris Peace Accord signed in 1992 that all the major powers signed on to is being subverted and destroyed by one of those original 4 Cambodia factions that signed the agreement. And at the end of the day, that should not be permitted.
Monavithya Kem, the US State Department has spoken out in support of your imprisoned father. They've said he's got a long, distinguished and internationally recognized commitment to human rights and peaceful democracy. Now, they haven't sort of criticized the Cambodian government outright, but they've showed their support for your father. Is that enough for you right now?
I think the international community as a whole needs to act, not just the United States. And because this is about Cambodia's democracy, this isn't about the US or not about my father in particular. It's about election that we're going to have next year. It's about making sure the election need to be free and fair. And if the current situation continue, there is absolutely no way that the 2018 election will be free and fair. And time is of essence. And right now, if we are the opposition party not able to function, doing normal political parties in order to prepare ourselves for 2018, I think if this situation continue for a few more months, the damages will be irreversible, and there's no way we can reclaim the integrity of the 2018 election. And I believe that action needs to be taken beyond statement, and again, not just from the United States, but from the international community as a whole. They need to act together because they do have obligation because they are signatory of the Paris Peace Accord.
Let's have a listen to what Hun Sen had to say with regards this specific arrest of Kem Sokha. Here's his justification of it.
It's very lucky for us that Cambodia has found and arrested the traitor. If the opposition party continues to blockade and defend this traitor, it means the party is also a traitor. So there is no time to let this party operate in Cambodia's democratic process anymore.
So, Monavithya Kem, there seems to be an inevitability about all of this now. First, they go after the man, then they go after the party. Do you fully expect the party to maybe be banned in the coming months ahead of the elections next year?
I don't believe that the Hun Sen government has the intention to ban the party from joining the election. They want a weakened opposition party that cannot fully participate, that cannot fully act as an opposition so that he can guarantee his victory in 2018. I believe they need the CNRP to be on the ballot to legitimize the process, to legitimize a flawed election. So I think that's where we need to, that's where the international community needs to step in, that the election can only go forward. Not only you need CNRP on the ballot, but you need a CNRP that is functioning fully as we did in the past. And if, again, if the situation now continue even for just the next 2-3 months, there's absolutely no real election for 2018. We need to do a lot of preparation right now for 2018, and our party is falling apart with our leadership and without everyone, including all the MPs, our officials from top to bottom. We're facing physical danger and imprisonment ourselves, so we cannot function as a party.
Phil Robertson, given that no major player from the international community is prepared to do anything for now, does nothing stand in Hun Sen's way right now?
Well, I think that we are starting to see some action at the UN Human Rights Council. The Special Rapporteur gave probably her strongest speech that she's ever given there. There are efforts to put together a resolution which will add some additional intervention possibilities by the Human Rights Council. But really, I mean, the major powers like the United States, the European Union, its member states, the donors to Cambodia need to step up. Cambodia is still a country that's very heavily aid dependent. And, you know, the government is not going to be able to continue to operate the way it does without the support of the international community. And so the international community really has to make some decisions. You know, how important is democracy and human rights in Cambodia? Because Hun Sen is systematically intimidating every key faction of the country. The opposition party, the newspapers, the embassies themselves, as he's going after the United States and then trying to impress on other embassies that your diplomatic relations will also suffer if you don't go my way. You know, this whole situation has come about because of a high degree of inattention by the international community what was happening in Cambodia. They've sort of given Hun Sen a free pass over the last couple of years, and now he's taking advantage of it. And we have to actually pull it back, you know, in the next several months, or, you know, it is true, the 2018 election will only be an election in name. It will basically be a rubber stamp of a Hun Sen dictatorship.
Phil, how do you slap him on the wrist and say, we're not happy with what you're doing, you're squeezing the opposition, but then not hurt the economy and not hurt the ordinary people of Cambodia? Because as you mentioned, it's an aid-dependent country. How do you do all of this without hurting the ordinary people?
Well, I think a lot of the ordinary people are fed up with this government as well. I mean, a lot of the ordinary people have lost their land to Hun Sen and government ministers and their business cronies. A lot of the people are working for these garment factories but not making enough to earn, to live on, you know, so that they can't basically send money back up country. You know, there's actually a lot of damage that's already been caused by the corruption and lack of good governance that has been the trademark of the Hun Sen's rule. So, I mean, I think to a certain extent the question should be, how bad is it going to get if something isn't done now?
Monavithya Kem, tell me why the CNRP won't protest inside Cambodia. We've seen protests outside in the diaspora. Why won't the opposition have big protests or rallies inside the country?
That just shows you how scary the situation is inside the country. Our party officials have fled the country. Some are in hiding. We are not able to operate. Everyone is in fear of their security, of their physical well-being. And in terms of our supporters are just waiting. I think that they have been fed up and they are just waiting for signal from the CNRP whether or not we would hold the mass protests. But we are, as a party, we have to be responsible. And as the situation now, we don't believe that a protest would be a viable option right now, but that is not something off the table yet. We are right now trying to find solution through dialogues, and that between that would involve more than us and the ruling party. That would involve again the international community. If that doesn't go anywhere, I believe that protest is still on the table. But again, we take things step by step, and protest would be our last resort. But at the end of the day, I don't believe that the Cambodian people ourselves would let the country go into deteriorate completely back to 1980 with one party ruling in effect, and that's where it's going right now. So the international community needs to step up right now to prevent any instability that could result from this crackdown in the last month.
Would there be a possibility, Monavithya Kem, that you would boycott the election because you don't feel it's a fair playing field?
We don't have intention to boycott the election now. We have the intention to make the election free and fair so we can participate in it, because we believe that's the only way to go forward is making change through election. But until then, from now until the next few months, the next several months, if things do not change, there is absolutely no way the election can be free and fair. So it's the decision of the international community, in particular the donors. Are they willing to go forward with an election that they know already? They know already that it won't be free and fair, or they're going to take some action that would make the Cambodian government reverse its course. And to add on what Phil was saying, I don't believe that the action that they need to take would actually hurt the Cambodian people. There are many other tools that they can use. They are different stages. And I believe that the Hun Sen government is only testing the commitment of the international community to democracy and human rights in Cambodia. If the international community is able to demonstrate that commitment, I believe the Hun Sen government would back down and reverse the situation. So it's a matter of will, and it's a testing mode right now. And I don't believe that it will come down to donors having to cut all aid, having to cut Cambodia trade privileges. I don't believe it has to go down all the way to that measure. Just to the international community just need to communicate clearly their strong commitment, and then I believe the Hun Sen government would back down, because this regime cannot survive without the aid and the trade privileges that given by the EU as well as the United States.
Phil, tell me about Sam Rainsy on the outside as well, another opposition leader in exile who hasn't gone back. How much sway does Sam Rainsy have as well? And how much, I guess, momentum can the opposition gain by trying to unify in the diaspora?
Well, Sam Rainsy, of course, is the former party leader. He is no longer the party leader, because if he was still the party leader, it would give an option to the government to ban the party. That was part of the unfortunate amendments to the law on political parties, which were jammed through by the CPP in the parliament. I think that, you know, he still inspires many people. I think that he is going around into different countries to try to get governments to put pressure on Cambodia, to try to encourage people to be involved. But the major problem with the elections, and we saw this 5 years ago, is the absentee balloting process simply doesn't function. There are well over 1 million Cambodian migrant workers in Thailand, right next door to Cambodia, who wanted to vote 5 years ago, and it simply didn't happen. The process was not put in place. And efforts to try to organize such a process or demand amendments to the voting procedures to allow that have been met with opposition and threats by the ruling party. So quite clearly, the government doesn't want to have Cambodians overseas to have any sort of say about who leads Cambodia. In fact, they're actively discouraging it and threatening the proponents who are trying to change that.
Monavitya Kem, are you hopeful that your father will be released anytime soon?
I believe that he needs to be released before election in order for election to even take place, but I think timing is important. He needs to be released soon enough, and I would say immediately. Otherwise, the damages to the electoral process cannot be reversed. And I believe that the Cambodian people have the will to go forward if the international community does not act. Again, we are waiting for a solution through dialogues. We are waiting for a solution through other stakeholders, but at the end of the day, we are not going to let our country to go back to the 80s. So I believe that he will be free soon, one way or the other.
Monavitya Kem, when do you think all of this began? Has it been a long time coming? I mean, after reading a bunch of articles about this, it seems as if 2013 was this pivotal moment. Was that when it all began?
Yes, I think we took the ruling party by surprise in 2013, and ever since then, the crackdown has been going on since 2013, and I believe the international community did not take it seriously enough, which is why it has come down to the crackdown leading up to my father's arrest last month. We saw this coming. We knew that before election, the Cambodian government will not allow a stable or a normal environment to exist, because otherwise they will lose 2018 election. So we saw it coming, and the crackdown is not new. It's been going on since 2013, whether or not outsiders were paying close attention.
And Monavitya Kem, what's your message to Hun Sen?
Release him now, or we will not have a stable Cambodia.
Phil, is it that...
And that is not in the interest of the Cambodian people or the ruling party.
Yes. Phil, is it that simple, that if Kem Sokha is released, this momentum can easily be reversible, or are some of the problems far more systemic?
Well, I think there are, I mean, obviously releasing Kem Sokha is the first absolute step that must happen. But, you know, there are other issues as well. I mean, they've shut down the independent radios, they've shut down the Cambodia Daily, which was one of the major independent newspapers. They have intimidated many of the major human rights organizations in the country, as well as a number of other NGOs. I mean, I'm seeing NGO leaders coming this way, you know, getting out of the country because they've been threatened. you know, there are lists of people that are suspected in being involved in this make-believe color revolution that Hun Sen has been talking about. And, you know, if you're on the list, you're subject to immediate arrest. And because the judiciary is such a joke, frankly, it's a kangaroo court, it's controlled by the ruling party of the CPP, anybody knows that once you get dragged into court, the conviction is just a matter of course. And so, you know, the government has essentially tried to destroy any sort of control over them, whether it be by media, by donors, by NGOs, by opposition parties, or by the courts.
And of course, we reached out to the Cambodian government. They were unavailable for comment and they didn't want to participate on the program. Looking forward to talking to them at some point in time. But it's been interesting to find out from both of you what's going on the ground in Cambodia at the moment. Monavithya, Kem and Phil Robertson, I have to move on, but I thank you both for joining us on the Newsmakers.